I think one of the biggest misconceptions people have about success is that they assume it's built on certainty. But honestly, most meaningful things in life are built long before certainty ever arrives. They're built through observation, pattern recognition, discipline, repetition, conviction, and adaptation. And I think this is where people massively misunderstand what real positioning actually looks like. Because from the outside, someone may appear lucky, but they didn't see the years studying, watching, learning, failing, adjusting, reflecting, building emotional control, developing patience. They only saw the visible outcome, not the invisible preparation. And honestly, I think this applies far beyond markets. People often underestimate how much unseen work exists behind composed behaviour, behind calmness, behind structure, behind quiet confidence. Because calm people are rarely calm by accident. Usually, they've survived enough internal chaos to understand the value of regulation. That's important. And I think this is one of this is the stage where the operator mind fully starts separating itself from emotional participation, because eventually you stop approaching opportunities emotionally and start approaching them structurally. That's the shift. You stop saying, I hope this changes my life, and instead you begin thinking, how do I execute this properly? That's a completely different orientation. One is fantasy, the other is responsibility. And honestly, I think responsibility is one of the most underrated psychological traits in modern culture, because responsibility requires emotional maturity. It requires patience. It requires resisting impulsiveness. It requires long-term thinking in a world addicted to instant stimulation. And markets expose that brutally, because markets don't just reveal strategy, they reveal nervous system stability. They reveal emotional conditioning. They reveal whether someone can tolerate uncertainty without collapsing into reaction. That's the real test, not intelligence. It's not prediction, it's regulation. And I think one of the most powerful shifts a person can make is learning how to detach emotionally from immediate outcomes while remaining deeply committed to long-term execution. That's operator behaviour. Because operators understand something most reactive people don't. You do not need certainty to act intelligently. You need structure. That's all. Structure allows calmness. Calmness allows observation. Observation improves decision making. And eventually, consistent decision making compounds into meaningful outcomes. That's how real positioning is built, quietly and over time, without constant emotional noise. And honestly, I think this is why so many people struggle when opportunities finally begin appearing. Because emotionally, they're still operating from survival. still chasing emotional relief, still needing immediate reassurance. But serious positioning requires something different. It requires the ability to remain composed while probability unfolds slowly. That's difficult, especially in a world built around overstimulation, because modern culture rewards reaction. Fast opinions, fast emotions, fast gratification, fast identity construction. But real growth is usually slower than emotion wants it to be. And I think this is where conviction becomes incredibly important. Not blind conviction, not delusional. Grounded conviction. Conviction built through research, observation, pattern recognition, experience, reflection. And that's different, because grounded conviction creates steadiness. And steadiness is powerful, especially during volatility. Because when conditions become emotional, most people abandon structure. That's why they panic, overtrade, chase, rotate impulsively, sell strength too early, hold weakness too long. Emotion overrides preparation. And honestly, I think one of the defining characteristics of an operator is the ability to remain loyal to structure during emotional conditions. That's rare, very rare, because emotional environments pressure people toward reaction, but operators slow down. They observe first, and observation changes everything, because when you observe properly, you begin recognizing something important. Most people aren't actually losing because they lack opportunity. They're losing because they cannot emotionally hold the opportunity once it arrives. That's the difference. And honestly, I think that's one of the deepest psychological transitions a person can go through, especially if they came from environments shaped by scarcity, stress, uncertainty, or instability. Because eventually you realise the external opportunity was never the only thing that needed building. Your internal world needed rebuilding too. That's the hidden work, the nervous system work, the identity work, the emotional regulation work. And the truth is, most people never see that part. They only see the result. But the result is usually built on years of invisible internal refinement. That's why I don't think real positioning is luck. Luck can create opportunity, but structure determines whether someone can sustain it. That's the distinction. And honestly, I think this is why calmness carries so much weight. Because calmness signals preparation, self-trust, regulation, and of course clarity. Not arrogance, not emotional intensity, just steadiness. And maybe that's what the operator mindset really is in the end. Not becoming emotionless, not pretending fear disappears, but becoming regulated enough that emotion no longer controls execution. That's powerful. Because eventually there comes a moment where you stop asking, can this work? And start asking, can I remain disciplined enough to handle it properly if it does? That's the real question. And honestly, that question alone changes a person. because that's the moment that stops behaving like someone waiting to be saved and start behaving like someone capable of carrying responsibility. That's operator positioning. Not loud, not frenetic, and not driven by dopamine. Just calm, structured, executed.